Let's podcast in the Eford Studios, downtown Raleigh. That's Joe Giglio. I'm Joe Ovies. You've decorated, Joe.
Well, you can't tell from your angle, but
no. I mean, I literally just got back from vacation, and I walked into the studio space, and I was like, "Oh, you've got your Law of the Wolf encapsulated in one photo behind you." Got a little. Which Martin twin is that?
That's Caleb.
That's Caleb Martin.
Mount Rushmore.
All right, you got your Jordan Staal placard. You got the ACC media thing. Your no admittance. You get all the stuff, but I have just a blank wall. It is what it is.
You are a blank canvas.
I'll get around to it. I got some ideas.
You know what's bad is I printed out the picture from Ethan Hyman from the Stadium Series to put behind you for today's show.
Yeah.
Framed it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's in my kitchen. It's in my kitchen. What was the cat? Garfield? Mondays, right? Yeah, but we are back, and it's funny when I'm usually gone, I am like, I'll just completely check out. Yeah.
Right. So I was gone for what I think my total travel time was 11 days. So it's completely checked out.
Whew, that's a lot, Joe.
I
don't know how you do that.
It is a lot. You know
me.
So, like
I'm like 2 days off. I'm like, I need to do something.
Yeah. No, I mean, it wasn't like I wasn't doing anything.
No, I know you were all over the place.
Yeah. I mean, I did a whole road trip, which we'll get to later. I got some Hey Joe questions about that. But like
real ones, right?
Actual real. How did you fake them?
Did you fake them? I used all the real
Good
ones.
for you.
I know. Look at the growth.
I'm proud of you because
So
in the old
much
days,
growth.
when nobody could literally see it, you could just make up whatever Hey Joe questions you wanted. So good for you, man. Good for you. Now, like, so I started to like crash course what I missed on Saturday. That's when I started, when I got back from the trip. And I was like, oh, so I missed a sub tragedy. Apparently Russian politics is a lot like college athletics in that you can have an administrative coup and then people back down because a booster stepped in. Like, shout out to Matt Brown from Extra Points, who was like, yes, the palace intrigue infighting of a coup attempt, but enough about Auburn. Let's see what's going on with Russia. I mean, he said Auburn.
It's fair.
I could bring up Tennessee.
Yes.
I mean, Phil Fulmer. I mean, the reason why John Curry's at Wake Forest is because Phil Fulmer had his own mercenary group come in and try to get his guys in and everything else. He ended up being successful. And Dave Dorn was caught up in that, the NC State football coach. But the one thing that I ended up being intrigued by the most was the draft was on Thursday night. And I know you did a show on Thursday with Anthony from Oakwood Pizza Box. No show on Friday. So we haven't had a chance to talk about the NBA draft.
The actual reaction. Have we finally found something that people don't like Michael Jordan for? Has it finally been done? Are we here?
I was jotting down.
Let's get another 10-part documentary because people aren't happy with Michael Jordan. We can't go one whole day with people being upset with Michael Jordan, can we?
Like I'm at the point where I'm convinced that Michael Jordan, the owner, nobody's going to like anything that he does, period. And I don't blame him, because what's the track record of success with the Hornets? A couple of playing games where they've been bounced? Like, seriously, what is the track record of the Hornets?
The Hornets have no track record. I would actually take this as a win if I was Michael Jordan, because the fans care.
I guess.
Hey, you care. You were enough to boo Brandon Miller. The mascot was enough. There's no chance that mascot's still employed, right?
So what you're let me if you're watching on YouTube, let me go ahead and pull this up, because this is actually pretty. This is from Nick Carboni over in Charlotte, longtime TV guy. Nick's a good dude, and I'm pulling this up on the old StreamYard here. Let me see if I can hit play. If you're watching on YouTube, here's Hugo the Hornet at the draft party at the Spectrum Center,
at the arena
or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Now. I forgot what it's called now. And here's
The Charlotte Hornets select Brandon Miller.
Hugo just like,
and everything else. And
the one from the local bar was like even more pronounced.
All right, so
which I would take as a win. Again, wait a second. You care about us? Hey, it's like Tom O'Brien said with Carolina. Hey, I made them care.
I guess so.
So if you're Jordan right now, hey, I made you care at least.
I guess that's the case. But here's my question. It was Brandon Miller from Alabama over Scoot Henderson. And there's all sorts of threads we can pull on, from the gambling markets and Shams Charanya's role in that and how he's kind of found himself in a little bit of hot water for his reporting ahead of the draft, to something that you and I have talked about for a few years now with the G League Signature Series, or whatever it's called now, but like the select team for high level prospects.
The guys who are making 6 figures to play in the G League, not the 20 grand guys riding a bus.
Yeah. Which that's to compete with Overtime Elite, which is you had the twins
the
Thompson twins from Overtime Elite. Scoot was in that signature series making whatever it was with the G League. But here, and this is something that I need somebody to explain to me. For all the people who are upset that it went Brandon Miller over Scoot Henderson, based on what? Based on what? Can you?
What do you mean?
How many people watch Scoot Henderson? Like for real?
Oh, they're upset that it's because of the unknown.
Isn't that? We do this all the time in the NBA. We'd rather pick a guy we know squat about.
Yeah.
We
this
don't know
is about the
squat
unknown.
about this guy. But because we've seen Brandon Miller play, it's a knock on him.
Well, there might be some of that.
Okay.
I think there was an idea going into this year that there were 2 guys in this draft, only 2 guys in this draft.
Yeah.
Obviously, Victor Wembanyama goes number 1, goes to the Spurs, a once in a lifetime prospect. And then the other idea was, here is this American, that came up through the hard streets of the AAU ball, Scoot Henderson, and he played. Remember, they played a game in Vegas. They had a showcase game, and he was spectacular against Wembanyama.
But keyword showcase. But continue.
Yeah, but he's 6'2". That's what this comes down to.
Okay,
Scoot Henderson's 6'2", and that's why the Hornets didn't take him. I think part of it is they thought it was a 2-man draft and you didn't take one of the 2, right? I think part of it is people universally love Michael Jordan. Universally.
Yes.
Like, you have to work really hard. Our friend Steve Young grew up as a Pistons fan and a State fan, so he hates Michael Jordan. You have to work really hard to find people who hate Michael Jordan. I grew up in the New York City area, and the Knicks were the Knicks. Everyone loved the Knicks and those Ewing teams. People still love Jordan. Yeah. It's not like people were like hating Michael Jordan. Okay.
Right.
You have to work really hard to hate Michael Jordan. Brandon Miller talked trash, straight up trash to Michael Jordan before the draft and work on that Sirius XM interview.
Well, he's like,
he was just a regular guy. I love Paul George. Paul George is my GOAT. And it was like, but that implies that everyone is extremely online.
Well,
right. So not everyone's extremely online and would have seen that interview.
This is true. So here's what you're referencing. This came from Brandon Scoop Robinson. He's got this. I guess he was asking questions at a draft availability. Yeah. And here's Brandon Miller
before the draft.
Like Michael Jordan's meeting with Brandon Miller was "quote unquote" exciting, says Miller to Bally Sports. Here's the exchange.
Brandon, you said you were wearing black and red at the draft, right? Jordan wore black and red as a member of the Bulls. Here's my question, unrelated to that. You're young. Older people, young people often have this LeBron and Michael conversation. I'm not going to ask you who's the greatest because that's old. But because you've been in Michael's presence and because you grew up liking LeBron, as a young person, do you feel like that conversation is just overdone?
No, because I actually don't think LeBron is, to go to basketball. I think my go to basketball is Paul George. I always grew up watching him, so it's never just LeBron.
That's it. When you talk with Michael, was that when you went through your draft process, was that the first time you met him?
Most definitely. That's my first time ever seeing him in person. It's definitely exciting, he's Michael Jordan, so he'll jump from the free throw line, the shoes that we wear all the time. It's kind of exciting to meet him.
What is something that you took away from that as far as just meeting him that, like, some people say, wow, like, he chews gum like this? Like, what is something random that you picked up from him that you just will stick with you forever?
Other than I see him airball that free throw, that would be the only thing. I see him airball.
All right, so there was a second interview that he did actually on Sirius.
Yeah.
Where he said, it was a different guy who was asking him questions very similar about Paul George. But what he said was, Michael Jordan is just a regular guy who came and watched me in a workout. That irked Jordan.
Yes, it did.
And then he got into the part about how he was airballing. But all I could think of was Jeff Bzdelik. When I was listening to the Sirius interview, you show respect by showing no respect.
Now, do you think that's why Brandon Miller
allegedly Bzdelik said that was from Jordan?
Yeah.
The infamous Bzdelik quote was allegedly traced back to Jordan.
Okay.
So maybe Jordan was so impressed with Brandon Miller talking straight up shit about him to his face that he said, you know what? Give me this guy.
Or and here's the Hornets put out, because the teams social medias these days are so great. I mean, they've got like the camera on Mitch Kupchak, and they've got Jordan on the phone. And here's the exchange between Jordan and Brandon Miller after they drafted him second.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Okay. Hornets select Brandon Miller.
What up, dude?
What's going on?
Can you palm a ball yet?
Of course, I was palming the ball like a couple of days ago.
So there you go. Like the only thing missing was the last dance, Jordan going up to Bird saying, blank you, you blank. All right. Because I'm not even going to, I can't even, I still have to untrain my FCC brain here for a second. No, so okay, you are going the route of you show respect by showing no respect. And Jordan
I think that
was so impressed Jordan that he's like, man, I don't care about you. Like I'm a young guy, it's whatever. But I have another theory. That's when Jordan took it personal. He looked at his iPad and he laughed. He did the meme. He went, right? I think he goes, man, I'm out of here. I'm selling a majority stake in this team.
Right.
And this team stinks. And I'm taking you second.
They don't stink. They're just average.
They're average.
They're league average.
They're average. That's all they are. That's all they are. They're average. But anyway, the last thought that I had on this,
or I don't know. It could be that Brandon Miller is a good shooter and he's 6'9", and you need to be able to shoot in the NBA, and Scoot Henderson's 6'2".
What a concept.
It could be that. It could just be that.
I don't know. Scoot Henderson could be redundant with ball. Like, I don't know. I mean,
probably different skill set there, but
I'm just saying, it's entirely possible. What do you need in the NBA? You need shooting.
Right? You got to be able to shoot.
You got to be able to shoot. All right. So if Brandon Miller can shoot, but I do think there's a larger, to tie it back to the OT Elite Series, the G League, and their signature series, and whatever it's called. I can't keep track of all these things. The point is, I want to go back to what you said in what we saw Scoot Henderson up against Victor Wembanyama, and it was a showcase game. What's the difference between Victor Wembanyama's coming up to be the number one pick in the draft, other than size? Where was he playing?
He was playing in France in their top league.
Competitive league.
Yeah.
It's a competitive league.
Yeah.
Oh, the Overtime Elite and these select teams do not play in competitive games. They're showcase games. I highly recommend that everybody goes back and watches Bomani Jones's game theory segment on Overtime Elite, and that it is a basketball incubator that's meant for social media purposes.
Right.
And the big takeaway that I had with all the clips that they had pulled for the show were all the instances which these players talked about how they were shocked how much social media stuff they had to worry about, because Overtime Elite monetizes, not with television rights.
I was just about to tell you, this is the Parker theory with NC State. He makes more money at Overtime Elite than he could at NC State.
Exactly.
And a big part of that are those dunks. And they have legitimate investors.
Mm-hmm.
They have legitimate advertisers.
Yes.
And that's how they make money.
So
or attempt to make money, I should say.
I know how this is going to sound. I know how this is going to sound. And you're going to make fun of me for my bootstraps energy.
Uh-oh.
Big boomer energy.
Back,
I'm back
from vacation.
Back from vacation.
And
I'm going
quick with the
bootstraps. Let's go, baby. I would rather take a guy. Because what do we know about the draft? It's a complete crapshoot. But if I'm going to take a guy, I would rather take somebody who has been in competitive games of consequence. Scoot Henderson has never played a game of consequence. You do that in college, where there's actual stakes with tournaments, rivalry games, NCAA tournament, that kind of stuff. I think you gain more. We'll use the ACC for the purposes of our conversation because we spend more time talking about the ACC. Don't you think that at Duke, you're dealing with pressure that is going to be something that you're going to have to get comfortable with when you get to the NBA? You don't think in that Coach K season that Paolo Banchero got a true like, oh man, like this is real?
Yeah, there's different ways to be helped though.
Just saying.
There's different ways to be helped. I'm not dismissing what you're saying, but the idea of being an incubator and understanding, look, we're not going to gin up some fake, rivalry between the Overtime Elite Blue and the Overtime Elite Black.
Yeah.
We're going to give these guys a legitimate chance to work on their game and hone their craft.
Mm-hmm.
Well, once we see what the twins look like, the Thompson twins look like, we'll have a better idea. Do I think Brandon Miller, do I think the concept that we know more about Brandon Miller and therefore it potentially hurts him with average fans? Absolutely. But what do we also know about Brandon Miller? He was tangentially related to a murder case, but that involved his teammate.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
people got mad. People got mad at Malik Andrews for bringing that up.
And sometimes a lot of information or any information can be used against you.
Housekeeping.
So we got stickers, Joe.
I'm excited about the stickers.
Took advantage of a sticker mule sale. It was like $20 for like 50 stickers or whatever it was. It was not a lot. So he just put the little widget.
A sticker mule is different from a drug mule.
Totally different.
Okay.
We're
okay with that.
This is totally legal.
We can't admit things on the internet here. So.
Right. You can go online. You can find it online.
That's a legit business.
It's a legit business. I hope
there's
so.
There's no cousin Nunzio on that one.
They sent the stickers. I mean, it is what it is.
Or maybe there is. They're just off the truck.
Yeah, I don't know. So I guess the best way to do this would be that if you email with the subject line sticker to the oggoesdigital@gmail.com. Again, subject line sticker. And then in the body of the email, just put your address.
Do I need to teach you everything about radio?
What?
You got to make the people listen.
What do you mean?
For these golf balls.
Yeah.
These beautiful OG golf balls.
Yeah. Show those.
I don't give this stuff away.
Oh, with the stickers or whatever. Those just give them away.
Joe,
put them on your tumblers.
70,000 downloads, Joe. We have an audience. Okay.
Yeah.
They listen to the show.
Yeah.
Give them a keyword during the show, like you do old school radio. Then they have to listen to get the keyword.
Okay.
Keep giving away sticker on the social media.
Stickers. They're just
Joe,
stickers. It cost me nothing.
There are no small parts, Joe. There are no small roles.
That's fine. That's
Only small people.
Speaking of listeners, shout out to everybody who heading into Father's Day, we're getting ready for 4th of July, has gone to the butcher's market. We know that people have been going, all right, cool, let's go check it out. Let's see what they got. And the butcher's market always gets it done just right. They got multiple locations throughout the triangle. I got my home base there on Millbrook and Falls of the Neuse. I'll probably be headed there this week to get some stuff to start grilling for 4th of July. It's almost 4th of July already. Where did June go, man? Well, I was on the road. That's where June went.
Goes fast.
It goes really, really fast. But
especially with a graduation and everything else. Shouts to our listener who actually sent the butcher's market a message on Facebook that said, hey,
that's what we need.
I live in Holly Springs. I had never been before, but I listened to it on the OG. Also, shouts to our listener who was like, you were right. Well, always my favorite words.
Oh, you love hearing
They were like, you're right.
That
That steak sandwich is the best in town. And it truly is. So go check them out. Butcher's Market. It's the Butcher's Markets, plural.com.
It is absolutely legit. And shout out to Breeze Through, multiple locations throughout the triangle. It is summer concert series. Walnut Creek, there's a Breeze Through right outside Walnut Creek. You can get all your look at you with the tumbler. Lifetime free refills?
Buddy.
What?
We're going to buy 5 of these in our next giveaway and give these away. But you know what we're going to do?
What are we going to do? Put the sticker on it?
We're going to get the OG logo on the back. Because
wait a minute, has Adam agreed to put the OG logo on one of their Breeze Through?
No, I got to connect in Garner. Mm-hmm. That might be able to help us and modify the Breeze Through itself.
All right.
Because this tumbler is amazing. First of all, I don't know why we're sitting over here racking our braids. Where can we find a tumbler? The Breeze Through
has
not only that, it's the lifetime refills. Walk into any location.
Yeah.
Hot or cold. Soda or coffee.
Ooh.
$20.
Ooh.
Dude.
Okay.
Seriously.
All right. I'm with it.
Seriously.
I'm with it.
Like you're never going to be at PNC Arena again. Like you're never going to be at Carter Finley Stadium in the fall. Are you kidding? Like you're never going to go to Walnut Creek.
I love it.
Breeze Through. Take care of them. They take care of us.
Absolutely love it.
Move on. All these props, man.
What did you
go away? I get props.
Have a lot of props. What did you talk about while I was gone?
Well, Brad Frisch was here.
Yeah.
For 2 of the episodes because we had golf. When you're not here, it's kind of like when you weren't there. When you weren't with Adam got to talk all kinds of baseball.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Right
now he just talks about soccer.
You were gone, so I was total golf mode.
Right.
Brad played in 2 U.S. Opens. It was a compelling U.S. Open. Mostly, I got to be critical of Los Angeles and the USGA, so that was kind of cool. And then Anthony was here for 2 days.
Yeah,
and we covered a lot of NBA with Anthony. Anthony's an NBA guy, so we covered a lot of NBA.
You didn't talk about major commissioners saying dumb things?
We did not.
Rob Manfred stepping in it multiple times. Baseball commissioner Rob Manfred.
I heard he said that he made some mistakes with the Astros. Mistakes were made.
Mistakes were made with the Astros cheating scandal. You don't say. You don't say. Although
he had his John McNamara moment.
Jeez, man. If you missed it,
we made a mistake.
If you missed it, Rob Manfred, who's been I don't know, maybe he wants to distract people from his comments about the Oakland A's and their impending move and how he's basically just taking a giant dump on fans in a market they clearly do not care about anymore. Let that be the lesson, by the way. That's the lesson for all sports fans. Once a league decides that they don't need you or they're going to go chase the shiny object in another market, in this case would be Las Vegas, you're done to them. You're like all the stuff about, oh, it's important to be in the communities. And let's put it this way. We got multiple reminders last week while I was gone that corporate buzzspeak is undefeated in its nonsense. All right. And Rob Manfred was another example of that. And then you got Gary Bettman, who the NHL commissioner decided, all right, rather than telling the handful of people who just don't want to wear a Pride jersey because of reasons, quote unquote reasons,
religious beliefs,
we're just not going to do it anymore. No more warm-up jerseys for anything anymore. It's the classic parent, and I know you've done this, but this is the vibe that I got from Bettman in this decision that he made. It's like when the kids were fighting over Legos. What did I do?
Take them all away.
Took them all away. Just took them all away. So those are all the things. Shout out to the commissioners, although none of them top Lance Armstrong. So Lance Armstrong.
Wait.
Oh yeah. No.
That Lance Armstrong?
That Lance Armstrong decided.
The one who went to the moon on his bike?
So he has decided that he wants to be like a controversial, like you can't cancel me type like host now. So he wants to have an honest conversation about transgender athletes, which is ironic that now he's really concerned about testosterone levels.
This is how he's launching his career.
This is how he's the guy who won 7 Tour de France's by cheating and running a terror campaign against his own team.
Not only cheating, but legitimately changing
right?
the hormone levels in his body.
Yes, that's the irony.
That guy?
That guy.
Or does blood doping not count as that?
Jeez.
I don't know. I don't have my medical degree.
I guess not. Now is suddenly concerned with fairness.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to tell you, man, peak summer topics. Peak summer topics.
Next topic, please.
Lance Armstrong absolutely did
He's
that.
He's worried about
fairness.
Is his first panelist going to be Barry Bonds?
It might be. It might be. Joining us on the Heischer Automotive Group hotline is our friend, Jonathan Jones, CBS NFL insider. JJ, what's up, man?
What's going on, fellas? Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, finally happy to get you on our independent podcast adventure.
Love it.
So I don't think we're going to make as much money as David Tepper and eventually buy an NFL team, but one can hope and wish.
I don't know. A lot of money in podcasts these days.
So I've heard that gambling money really needs to start coming through now in 2024. We'll get it here in North Carolina. That's actually, so I wanted to start with the Panthers. And I feel like there's and correct me if I'm wrong, but the impression that I'm getting is that they really started to put on a charm offensive now that Bryce Young, all the speculation and what they wanted to do, they pick him and they're trying to kind of overcome the questions that everybody had in terms of his size. And the charm offensive has started. Is that kind of like an accurate representation of what we're seeing this summer leading into training camp?
I agree with you that there is a charm offensive happening. I would say that it's probably multi-pronged. First of all, all 32 teams are putting on a charm offensive right now, right? So there's that.
The third string tight end, Double J.
Yeah.
See this catch.
Obviously, you have a robust digital and social media department there with the Carolina Panthers, perhaps, and they've done it better than a number of teams. So that charm offensive is going to stand out among other NFL teams. But then I would just say that the years under Matt Rule, they were really tough on a lot of people. I know, obviously, the fans, but they were really tough on a lot of people that worked there, and really kind of the creativity juices weren't able to flow necessarily. And so now, if you're a little unbridled, that you can breathe just a little bit more. Look, folks are really happy that it's not Matt Rule there. So. It could be Frank Reich. It could kind of be anybody. But the fact that you have a fantastic human in Frank Reich, you got the number 1 overall pick, a very affable young man in Bryce Young, and you're 0-0 in perhaps the worst division in football this season. Yeah, okay, you're going to have a lot of charm happening.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. And I get the part about Matt Rule. Giglio and I actually talked about this when they announced that Bryce Young was going to be elevated to QB1, going into training camp.
Look at these adults
running
the room.
What? And there's almost like Frank Reich might work out, but I do worry sometimes that we were so just over the previous regime and how clownish the behavior was, the way of the Panther and one of us and the very college nature of it all that Nebraska fans seem to be lapping up right now, that it's almost possible to give what the Panthers are doing right now too much credit. Does that make sense? Because it was so opposite from what we've seen.
Yeah, I completely agree. And obviously, David Tepper has admitted as much. And he has said it, but it's also the tacit admission of when he hired Matt Rule and signed him to that ridiculous contract and then allowed him to bring in all of his Baylor and Temple buddies onto the coaching staff with no NFL experience. Well, now look who you have now, right? I mean, you have literal centuries of coaching experience with the Carolina Panthers. And I don't think that's a bad thing. So I'm not going to be like, oh, you'd never had an experienced NFL coach on one side. Now you have too many experienced NFL coaches. I don't think that's a bad thing. However, when you do have all of those people, you get the chefs in the kitchen sort of deal. And so until these guys start to really work together throughout a game week, when will Frank Reich hand over the play calling duties to Thomas Brown, the offensive coordinator? You have Josh McCown, a quarterbacks coach, his first time really coaching in the NFL. And so how are all these dynamics going to work? You have a senior offensive assistant in Jim Caldwell. You have Frank, there are a lot of people with a lot of hands and very capable hands, but who gets to be the last person in the ear of Bryce Young? Yeah. Is the message going to be unified? All of those things they have to figure out. I think they can and will figure it out. But until we get there, who knows?
I'm going to give you the good problem I think the Panthers are going to have this year. I think they're going to be good. They're going to pull a Duke football. They're going to pull a UNC football. They're going to pull an NC State football.
Okay.
They're going to hire a new coach. They're going to go from 4-8 to 8-4, and everyone's going to be excited. They're going to make the playoffs. They're going to win their division.
Mm-hmm.
And then everyone, it's been since 1980. JJ, you know this.
I do.
We're going to sit here and wait. Well, when do you go from 8-4 to 12-0?
Mm-hmm.
When do you go from 8-4 to 11-1? How do you go from just being in the playoffs to Super Bowl contenders? I'm telling you this as a good thing for the Panthers.
It's a great thing.
They are now going to be functional. This is the part where then you start scanning that roster and going, who are the true difference makers on that roster? I'm glad they kept Banks. I'm glad. If they hadn't, that's a player I think is a true difference maker.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're going to see, and you're going to have to write all these things, JJ. If you still write, I don't even know, because you're Mr. CBS, all this stuff.
Yeah, sometimes I write. Thanks for reading.
No, you've graduated.
You graduated.
We're so proud of you.
Proud.
We're like the great gay parents with our look
at our large adults.
Look at our son. Oh my God. It's amazing.
You guys.
But you're going to have to talk about what a great story, what a feel-good story the Panthers are. And they're going to get to the playoffs. They're going to probably lose in the first round. And then next year, everyone's going to be like, all right, Super Bowl. And that's where I think the talent discrepancy comes in.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is the year you enjoy all of this stuff.
Sure. If they make the playoffs, that's fantastic.
It is.
Really, even if they don't win the NFC South, which is probably going to be, in terms of record, the least competitive division in football. Look, the Falcons and the Saints could both make the playoffs. I think the Saints are going to win the division based off what I saw in New Orleans recently and how they've cobbled together their pieces. But still the NFC.
Oh, Derek Carr. I'm like, who is their quarterback? What are we talking about here, buddy?
But I mean, think about the 3 NFC wild cards. You're going to get one out of the NFC East, right? It's going to be a Dallas or a Philadelphia, maybe a Washington, but you're really going to get one there. And then what happens, right? The NFC and the wild cards are really going to be up for grabs. So if you believe that the Panthers, if they can get 9 wins, any NFC team with 9 wins gets into the playoffs. That's the sort of theory I'm with you for, right?
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
And so, there is going to be a talent discrepancy at certain positions for the Panthers. I think that they know that they don't have a true go out there and win a divisional round playoff game, number 1 wide receiver. A lot of questions at corner, certainly starting the beginning of the season with J.C. Horn and his injuries, and you need another pass rusher. These are all things that they know, of course. But if you win 9 games, you make it to the playoffs, you keep it competitive, or at least don't get completely embarrassed and disrespected in a wild card game, then people should feel good about the next season because you know what you have, add to it, get better.
Jonathan Jones.
Indeed. I said Banks. Burns.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to roll with that.
Yeah. Oh, what are we?
It's Monday.
It's like when I was getting all my Sams confused. Same thing. I don't think there's a guy on the Panthers roster named Sam. I could be wrong. So I guess that would be the question, because you brought up the skill position groups, and I think I'd seen something aggregated recently about DJ Moore. Part of the deal to get Bryce Young, something had to give for Chicago. I get why Chicago went for DJ Moore, because they're giving Justin Fields that receiver, that
giving him a chance
with DJ Moore. So I feel though that I almost feel like
not everybody can have that quote unquote number one receiver. We get really, really caught up in what we've seen like true Super Bowl contenders. But I feel like the moves that they made make sense in that good veteran wideouts that can work with the young talent, right?
You
like
took a scratch off too in the draft.
You did. But like when what was it? When Luke Hopkins was out there, right? And I don't think back from vacation. He hasn't signed anywhere yet. But I saw Panthers fans kind of getting like thirsty about DeAndre Hopkins. I'm thinking to myself, well, I've seen multiple reports where DeAndre Hopkins has a little bit of a reputation of not really. He's kind of like the Allen Iverson we're talking about practice kind of vibe, right? And if I'm the Panthers, I don't want to put that in the environment. And I feel like the decision they made was to just kind of get good, older, veteran, understand your role guys around him that truly help his first year. Because, hey, man, it's going to come at you fast.
It's 1,000% right. Look, if you're going to get a Bryce Young, you got to give something up, right? I live here in Boston. You want to get Kristaps Porzingis. I'm sorry, but you know, they don't want Malcolm Brogdon. They want Marcus Smart. So you're going to have to give up Marcus Smart to get the guy, right? And so, yeah, of course, you'd love to have the number one overall pick and Bryce Young and the guy with the moxie of Tom Brady from the neck up, and then also be able to keep the legitimate number one receiver. That's not the way life works. So they go out there, and maybe Terrence Marshall Jr. really turns it on. Jonathan Mingo continues to have this sort of camp, or that he had in spring workouts. Fantastic, right? It is hard to find that true number one. I mean, I was just in Tennessee, and there's a reason that they want DeAndre Hopkins, even with some of those reputational marks that you mentioned, Joe, and that's because they know that they don't have anything close to a number one. Treylon Burks,
right,
at his best, is going to be a very good number two. And so if you feel that you're right there and you have some good veteran leadership in there, then go ahead and make that move. Unfortunately for the Carolina Panthers, or fortunately, depending on how you're looking at their trajectory and where they are on the spectrum, that's not where they're at right now. And so I completely understand bringing in an Andy Dalton, who now knows what it's like to be a backup, right? It's not his first year going from starter to backup. It's an Adam Thielen who knows that his skills are diminished slightly from his top seasons with the Minnesota Vikings, but knows that he can still get it done. No question about it. A great locker room presence. And you have an offensive line that you're able to keep intact. So that continuity is going to be there for Bryce Young and for that running game. So because of those things, if you were bullish on the Panthers up to the point of they should be getting into the playoffs, I'm totally okay with that. But you should also realize that, they are a significant injury at one key position away from a 6-win season.
I think that's defensively too. I mean, you mentioned that. I'm not really worried about the Panthers offensively this year. Actually, I think the part that was their strength last year and what kept them from, kept them in the game. They almost made the playoffs.
They were able to run the ball.
It was running the football with the mentality that Steve Wilkes was able to instill in those guys, right?
And defensively, they were pretty sound. But unfortunately, with the injuries, you mentioned corner, I think that might end up being one of their biggest liabilities.
Well, they don't even know what that guy is.
Oh, they really don't. They really don't. Jonathan Jones, CBS
idiot
NFL insider, joining us here.
All of this nonsense.
All right, I wanted to get back to the too many cooks in the kitchen. We'll close the Panthers conversation with this. In that, I'm with you. You bring in this highly paid veteran coaching staff, and we talked about lessons learned. I guess the unknown, and we're not going to know this maybe for the next couple of years, is whether or not David Tepper truly learned any lessons as owner of the Carolina Panthers and how involved he wants to be. And I know you've told us stories on air about like
Teddy Bridgewater
and who I want to get and all those types of things. So how do you feel, or what do you think the sense is talking to folks in Charlotte about whether or not David Tepper's also learned some lessons here?
Okay, so this is going to be the classic fool me once, fool me twice, can't get fooled again. Okay.
Right.
So all of those stories that I have regaled you all with over the years, all true. I think that Tepper, with some truth serum, would say that he has been, in his first 4 or 5 years, been more meddlesome than maybe he should have been. And maybe he should have listened to some of the stories from his fellow owners who have been owners for 10, 15 years and realized, the mistakes you made in the first 5, I shouldn't make those. Instead, he repeated them. From what I hear from people in Charlotte, right now, the reviews are very positive and very solid. Again, we talk about the charm offensive. We talk about being 0-0 with the number one overall pick and hope in the post-rule era. But I'm hearing that while Tepper, of course he wanted to be clued in on who they were going to pick at number one. And of course, he wanted to bring a caravan of people to those pro days, which a lot of people around the league thought certain things about it. But the fact is he let Scott Fitter and Frank Reich make that decision, right? And he's letting the football people make the football decisions.
Mhm.
There's still some business decisions that I believe, he is extremely involved with. I think he has every right to be, but I am cautiously. There's usually a word after cautiously. I'm not willing to go cautiously optimistic.
All right.
But in talking with folks there is some optimism there that, okay, those were clearly mistakes. I'm going to raise my hand and own those in the worst 4 or 5 year stretch in Carolina Panthers history in terms of wins and losses. You have to wear it. And clearly I have to learn from those mistakes and be better. So that's where it stands right now.
All right. Fair enough. All right. Do you have anything else for JJ?
No, it's just great to see him.
I know.
I didn't even realize he was in Boston.
Yeah.
Where have I been?
Yeah, where you been?
I don't know.
Strange.
That's what I'm saying. You've moved up the ladder, man. You're like too important for us.
He's in peak. Mac Jones is totally going to work land right now.
Not Bailey
work.
Zapp.
Oh, I heard it's a real competition.
No. Who's the new offense coordinator? They got Bill O'Brien.
Bill O'Brien. Yeah. So right now, Mac Jones has the position pretty well locked down.
That's the real answer.
Now, look, we all know that the real story.
Not that Bill Belichick can't coach without Tom Brady. No, that's not a thing. His record without Tom Brady is under 500. What? No,
we
that's
all
not
know.
a thing.
We all know the real story.
See, that one time he scouted the film and he saw that if you jump the route when the Seahawks call the dumbest effing play in the history of the Super Bowl, that makes you the greatest coach of all time. Surely you know this, Double J. You're in Boston.
Wow. I actually think that Belichick is the good
No slander.
Look at you.
It's going to be great when the Patriots have a better record than the Jets, though.
No, they will not. Absolutely.
That may very well happen.
That will absolutely not happen.
I'm just saying. I'm telling you right now. Look,
he's crawling to that Shula record. He's crawling to get his kid the job.
Yeah,
it's embarrassing. I've seen all of this before.
His quarterback is not talking about how words are interesting because it's called
but the
spelling.
Jets have talent.
While he's doing
Patriots have no talent.
Right, but if the Jets have a quarterback who's on some ayahuasca throwing him the ball, it might not work out.
Dude, he's stronger than ayahuasca.
I'm telling JJ, I'm telling you right now,
Tom
man.
Draper acid trip episode.
I'm telling you right now, this whole marriage between Aaron Rodgers and the Jets is gonna just go. I might go psychoactive with the way sports talk radio is going to work if they don't get off to a good start. And Aaron Rodgers is going to be a prairie dog looking at everything that the New York Post has on the back page. This.
I do think that a lot of people are not accounting for, and Joe, as you clearly are, that this has a strong potential to not go the right way early on.
Oh, my goodness.
And if it does not,
are
we going to see the Jets of yesteryear happen again and again?
Yes.
And again.
Yes.
So,
all right, man. Hey, we appreciate you making some time. Hopefully you have a good summer before everything kicks back up for the NFL season. And we appreciate your support throughout all of this, JJ. All right, man. We'll talk to you. Jonathan Jones, CBS Sports Insider, joining us here on the OG.
On the Heaster Automotive Group hotline.
Yes. Big thanks to JJ. Love to see his continued flourish on the NFL beat.
What's up next?
So you and I are going to be going to ACC kickoff in about a month. It's 3 days now, Joe. Very excited about this in Charlotte. Oh, boy. I want to go to Oak City Sports Cards, talk to Weston about getting some cards. And this is an old Deadspin bit, but I absolutely want to remember some dudes with some of our coaches in the ACC.
I've already put their request in.
Perfect.
If there's a card, if there's an unopened pack out there, Weston can find it for you. Maybe you have open cards. Maybe you have rookie cards. Maybe you want to find one of those Victor Wembanyama scratch-off lottery tickets. You can do it at oakcitycards.com or go check them out in downtown Raleigh. I appreciate everyone who has gone down there and said, I'm here because of the OG podcast. Be smart. Like one of our listeners, Jeffrey, he DM'd me. He said, hey, I went to Oak City. I got some of my autographed cards graded. Smart move. To get the best value for your cards, you have to get them graded. Weston can help you do that. Again, go check them out, oakcitycards.com.
Also, shout out to Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. I grilled yesterday. It was a nice day. Went to the pool. I didn't want to go back to full on adulting just yet. So got some laundry done, hit the pool, hung out with some friends I hadn't seen, and then got back home, put some wings on the grill. I was chilling. You know why? Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority, taking care of the backyard so I don't get bit up. You can do the same thing.
Yeah, Hayes is a real OG. Go check him out. It's bugsbite.com, bugsbite.com, or you can call them 919-807-1951. Whether you're trying to treat your backyard so you can enjoy it, whether you're trying to get rid of those ants in your kitchen after all of this rain, or whether you got mice up in the attic, Mosquito Authority, Pest Authority. Notice there's a pest there. Bugsbite.com. Check them out on the Twitters as well. No Mosquito NC.
Move on.
Joining us on the Heister Automotive Group Hotline, columnist, news and observer, he is Luke DeCock. And hi, Luke. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good.
I guess Jordan Staal's bank account's good too. 4 years, 2.9 million a year. And people are like, what? 4 years, Luke? 4? That's nuts. But I guess we have to wait for the details of the deal to actually emerge before we can really have opinions on it. And I guess this ends up making some sense for the Canes in the grand scheme of things, right?
Yeah, no, the details are out. It's declining, and the value, the actual money they pay him declines each year. And that 4th year's really easy to trade or buy out or do any number of retire. It's technically an under 35 contract. So if he were over 35, they'd be stuck for the whole contract, regardless of whether he retires or not. In this case, they've got some outs, and the contract is structured in a way that, is very sort of team friendly at the end of it, and look, I don't think anyone, even Jordan Staal, expects to play that 4th year, and maybe not even that 3rd year. But the way the 4th year is structured with a really low salary and a signing bonus, it makes it really easy to dispose that contract one way or another. And he gets the no trade protection he wants. Mm-hmm. None of this is going to happen without his sort of protection or authority. And, I think the question for me now is less, what does this contract mean? All that. It's, how do you sort of manage now that you've agreed to keep Jordan Staal presumably for another 2-3 years? How do you manage the eventual transition to Sebastian Aho, which we all know is going to happen, and he's going to get a great big contract, possibly as early as next week, which is the earliest they can sign an extension with him, and he's going to get an 8-year extension that's worth a ton of money, and a lot of the money that's not going to Jordan Staal anymore is going to end up in Sebastian Aho's pocket, and he's going to end up wearing the C at some point too. And this is a subject that's really touchy for Rod Brind'Amour because of the way the transition to Eric Staal was handled 13 years ago. That really left a sore spot for Rod Brind'Amour in the way that was handled. He was not happy with how Jim Rutherford and Paul Maurice handled that. I think that's one reason why things were a bit frosty between him and Paul during the conference finals. He's going to want to make sure that's done right. And whether that means Jordan Staal wears the C till his last game as a Hurricane, or there's some sort of managed transition to Sebastian Aho, I think that's going to be a really interesting storyline to watch over the next couple of years, because it is increasingly going to become Aho's team. He's going to have the salary. He's going to have the role. He has the personality and attitude. He's a fierce competitor. The players follow him. He's going to be a good to great captain someday. That sometimes it takes being in that role, like it did with Rod Brind'Amour, to figure out how good you really are at it. But that transition is going to be really interesting to watch.
Luke, this was the easy deal to knock out, though. What deal on the horizon there with the Canes that you look at on the roster and go, this could be a hiccup?
Well, the big one has, and everyone's seen this coming for years now, is you've got Brett Pesce and Brady Shea and Jacob Slavin on really team-friendly contracts, 2 of which expire next year and the other expires in 2 years. You've got to figure out, are you keeping all 3? Can you keep all 3 and not hurt the rest of the roster? That's why when we talk about the Hurricanes and their window, it is a finite thing with this group and this operation, and that's why last year was such a disaster, because you lose to a pretty objectively inferior team overall. And this year, you had a chance against a team that was the 8 seed. These are things that chances you may not necessarily get with this group again. And really the contracts of the defensemen are really the questions answered. You can keep all 3. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be a question of, how you handle that and who else has to go, because it is a cap league and the Hurricanes are a cap team. So, those are all things that are going to have to be addressed, but those are the sticky ones to me. And that's why there's been a lot of trade rumors with Brett Pesce and Brady Shea. I don't think there's anything, concrete behind them at this point. It's just something that obvious that anybody can throw at the wall. But those are conversations that are ongoing, and Hurricanes need answers on the long term on Shea and Pesce so they can kind of figure out what to do with the rest of the roster.
Speaking of deals, as of this recording, it has not gone through yet, but it appears that Tony DeAngelo will be returning to the Carolina Hurricanes after the Philadelphia experiment didn't go so hot. Now there's larger issues with Philadelphia, but I guess the fit wasn't there. Where does this stand? And I'll get to my next question after that.
As far as I can tell, it's being held up by the league because there's concerns about the Hurricanes trading for a guy. Philadelphia did sign into the contract, but the Hurricanes traded his rights to Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. There's some cap circumvention questions. Sounds like the league wants to hash this out with everybody at the draft, which is this week in Nashville. It just seems like there were some questions raised about whether this was the Hurricanes. It's crazy to think about circumventing the cap to get Tony DeAngelo on your roster. You'd think you'd be circumventing it to get him off your roster. But that's the question that seems.
Well, I guess
a bigger question. I think this is your next question.
Yeah.
Bigger question is why on earth would you do it?
Well, okay, that actually is my next question. Because
they won't have to pay the full freight. That's why.
I guess it's one of those things. It worked once, right? It's the old Bomani Jones scratch and dent special, right? Like here's the damaged goods. You got him for $1, and he gave you replacement level performance from Dougie Hamilton, who was getting made $9 million. Okay, so it worked once. All right. Well, if I can get somebody else to pay half his salary, and he'd be making what, 2.5 mil? With the Kings? 2.5
mil against the Hurricanes cap. Yeah.
Okay, against the Hurricanes cap. If you can get a guy who produces offensively, is a defensive liability, I can see where we might want to kick tires on that again on the cheap, right?
Yeah, this is a Shane Gostisbehere replacement. It's a guy who can run the second power play. He would have much less responsibility this time around with Burns here. I mean, he becomes a fifth defenseman. I mean, he's not going to be playing with Jacob Slavin again. My question would be, we just talked about the Rangers series and what a debacle that was. Do you want a guy back who was such a liability in the playoffs,
right?
Both in the Boston series and the Rangers series,
right?
Well, he was over as the number 2 guy.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He was terrible in the playoffs. It doesn't matter what role he was in. Sure. He wasn't the chemistry issue that everybody feared he would be. He wasn't, constantly booed by the fans. I think they sort of said, okay, when he does well, we're willing to applaud him, whether we like the guy or not. He did do some things really well. He was a great regular season player he was a good regular season player for the Hurricanes. And as you said, he did what they needed him to do. He kept his nose clean while he was here.
Yeah.
There weren't any big fireworks. So, I mean, I can understand. And look, when you talk about distressed assets, I mean, it's Tom Dundon's eyes light up. You can get something on the cheap. That's how you make money. You buy things cheap and sell them for more. They've done it once with DeAngelo. I get all of that. And look, they got away with it once. I just think you're asking lightning to strike twice a little bit there. It's not what I would do even at $2.5 million.
I mean, it could be my Galaxy.
Very Jimmy Rutherford of Don Waddell to go back and get another player, a little recycling action.
Or it could just be Rod Brindamore. I mean, I tweeted this. I'm sure you saw it, where it's like, fine, you're not going to put me in the Hall of Fame for my on ice performance. But what if I told you I was the only dude in the NHL who could ever get anything of value out of this distressed asset?
Yeah, and look, in a smaller role, he may be even more effective, which is only going to sort of burnish your case there. And look, maybe they took one look at the market for defensemen and said, this is the best we can do. I mean, Shane Gostisbehere has a chance to make a lot of money. I don't think he was actually way better defensively than his reputation with the Hurricanes. That actually kind of surprised me a little bit, but there's a lot of money in being an offensively capable defenseman in today's NHL. And Tony DeAngelo is that. I just feel like you got away with it once. You're really playing with fire trying to get away with it again, especially when this may be the last year for this core group of players.
Yeah.
Is that a risk you want to take, especially if you're bringing both goalies back, which I'm a little surprised. I get it. I'm a little surprised. And the other contract you asked about surprises earlier, I really thought Jesper Fast would be re-signed by now. I feel like that's a core guy for them and should be an easy one, and you knock it out quickly. So the fact that that's gone to the end of June, which is we're talking today, that raises an eyebrow a little bit. Doesn't mean there's any hiccups there. I haven't heard of anything tangible that's gone wrong there. I just thought that would be sort of an easy slam dunk, put it in your bag and move on.
A technical cap question for you, since you're smarter than me. Because people are like, well, they lose Max Pacioretty's money. What will they do with that money? That's just going to be eaten up by Aho's raise and the defenseman's raises and all that, right? Like they're not going out and getting another player at that number, correct?
No, because the cap's not. We're in this period of the COVID COVID imposed cap freeze where the cap isn't going up as they sort of recapture the money lost to COVID. So the Hurricanes basically have to deal with all these more expensive contracts, Aho, whatever they end up doing on defense in this sort of same window they had last year. So yeah, the Pacioretty money is going to get eaten up. There might be some of it. And then people are like, well, they got to spend it during the year. Well, yeah, when he went on injured reserve,
right.
you get that $7 million back. You can go spend it on other things. Same as they did sort of a little bit with Svechnikov's money at the end of the year, but you don't get to keep that the next year. You're back to where you started. So yeah, there isn't. I mean, they do have $7 million, but a lot of that's going to go to Aho. Basically, the Aho contract gets paid for that and Jordan Staal's pay cut, and then the rest of what's left over, will go to whatever forward fills that role. I think we're going to see a couple sort of salary clearing trades to give them some more flexibility.
Okay.
Whether that's a Teuvo Teravainen who's got 1 year left on his deal. If you decide you're not in with Teuvo for the long term, this is the summer you're going to get the most value for him. That's something that could happen at the draft if they decide to do it. Or, based on Dundon's comments at the end of the year to me, I mean, his feeling was, let's run this back with this group and give it one more chance. So yeah, the Pacioretty money is going to go to holding the group together.
Yeah, and we can close on this. Luke DeCock from the News and Observer. Your conversations with Tom Dundon, our conversations with Tom Dundon, I think all of us can agree he's never going to strike anybody as a sentimental type. You brought up Jimmy Rutherford, right? Rutherford was a sentimental type. He's going to bring people back, yada, yada, yada. Dundon's looking at, this is worked out with every contract situation that they've done. This is what we think you're worth. And you're free to go somewhere else. It gets back to something Rod Brindamore told us, right? It kind of gets back to the Tony DeAngelo point. Hey, by all means, go get money somewhere else. And what did Rod Brindamore tell us?
Every year, somebody calls back and says, hey wish I was still there.
Right. Nino Niederreiter last year.
Yeah.
So the Canes kind of have, with Rod in tandem, have this kind of reputation they've built up over the last 5 years, where I feel that the Canes are perfectly comfortable telling people, hey, man, this is what we think you're worth.
Love you, mean it.
Love you, mean it. You'd be good here. You'd be good here. You like it here. This is what we got for you. If you want to seek something else out, by all means, go ahead. We're not going to get in your way. So that's why the initial reaction to the Jordan Staal deal was, look, they're not sentimental. This has to work for both parties if they're going to make it work. And sure enough, that 35-plus contract situation makes it work for the Carolina Hurricanes. So it's the Sebastian Aho one that I'm truly fascinated by, right? That's the one I'm fascinated by because he's told us, Dundon told us, he's told you, Luke, it's going to happen. Okay. Well, last time it happened because Montreal stepped up and made things a little bit easy for you. Is this going to be as easy as they kind of make it sound to be?
Yeah, I think it will. And I mean, I don't know that as easy as they make it sound, but I think it's something that will happen easily because the term is kind of settled. There's no arguing over how long it's going to be. Everyone knows it's going to be 8 years. And his value on the, in a re-sign situation, I mean, it's pretty determined. Look, Seabass is getting paid.
Okay.
Hurricanes know it. He knows it.
Gotcha.
There's no argument over future value. He's in his prime. He may not be a superstar, but he's a star. This is not like, is Svechnikov going to be a 60-goal scorer or a 40-goal scorer or 30? Like Sebastian Aho. You're going to pay him to be Sebastian Aho. So yeah, I really don't think there's a ton of mystery in this. I think, this is not here's what we think you're worth. We're going to walk away if you don't like it situation. This is we've got to sign you for the long term. You're a core player. What's a number that makes everybody happy situation? Yeah. That's a big difference. Like you go back to 2018 in that draft, that the night of the first round, Noah Hannafin and Elias Lindholm were both told, here's the number. If you don't take it, we are trading you tomorrow. Yeah. And they woke up the next morning back with Bill Peters. So, that now they're both back. They're both trying to get out of Calgary. And the Elias Lindholm would be a great fit for the Hurricanes if they could make it work. So, it's funny how that happens in the big picture of things. And hey, man, if Adam Fox had signed with the Hurricanes, we probably look at that deal completely differently, even though it still worked out fine. I mean, they needed Dougie, and Michael Furlan's great week was a great week. But beyond that, the Aho deal is so obvious and so easy that okay. I shouldn't say so easy. It's so obvious. There's no edges to grind here, right? You're not getting that extra quarter point because you're deferring it, blah, blah. It's just, you do it and you take your medicine and you move on. And it's an easy one because you love the kid as a player, as a teammate. as a future captain. You want him to be happy. It's when you do it. Yeah, that doesn't mean you can sit down and do it over one beer, but it gets done.
Luke DeCock, News and Observer columnist. Hey, man, we appreciate it. We will talk to you later.
All good. See you guys.
Next topic, please.
Big thanks to Luke DeCock for hanging out with us here on Ovies and Giglio. And big thanks to Hometown Realty for sponsoring Ovies and Giglio. Have we sold a house yet? We got to sell a house.
We're close.
Okay, let's get going.
Summer is the time. Seriously, if you're going to move and you want to be ready for school next year, you go check out Hometown Realty. It's myhtr.com. Barry Woodard and his team, they have more than 250 agents. So when I tell you, if you're in the Triangle or you're on this side of North Carolina, Barry and his crew at HTR, myhtr.com, they're the ones to go to. They're in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Selma, Atlantic Beach. So if you're looking to buy, sell, or anything, even rent a place, check them out. It's myhtr.com, or you can always call them, 919-550-7355.
And you're buying a house, you need contracts, you knocking out some other deals, Whitaker and Hamer, attorneys and counselors at law. Check them out, wh.lawyer. I think they got all the G's in North Carolina covered in terms of location.
They do.
And a heck of a lot more.
Gastonia, Goldsboro, Garner, those are all the G's. They're also in Raleigh, Clayton, Fuquay, Morehead City. It's wh.lawyer. Selling a business, whether you have any family law needs, if you are like us, you're starting a business. Seriously, Josh and Joe, they got more than 20 years experience. Go check them out. It's wh.lawyer, the greatest URL in the history of the world, wh.lawyer. You can also call them at 919-772-7000.
Speaking of starting businesses, Wilmington is actually one of the hottest places for entrepreneurship. And you can check out more at newilm.com. It's Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington. I think we're going to be headed out to Wilmington at some point this summer.
We are.
We talked to Jim Roberts, who heads that up. And again, these are successful businesses, startups, a lot of successful exits too, as it relates to Wilmington and the opportunities for people who are starting these things up. It's not just like the hottest place in North Carolina. It's actually one of the hottest places in all of America right now. So if you're looking for new opportunities, you're looking to connect, you're looking to network, newilm.com.
Yeah, I was going to say, a lot of people will come up to me and say, yeah, Butcher's Market Show, got it. Oakwood Pizza, got it. Even sports cards, maybe not for me, but I get it because you have the best connect. What is this new? And I tell them, if you're starting a business and you're down at the beach, find Jim Roberts, find him on LinkedIn, find him on Facebook, go to the website, newilm.com. It's going to help you. And it's going to help you create a better startup, which in turn creates better jobs in Wilmington. Network for Entrepreneurs in Wilmington, where the river of innovation meets an ocean of possibilities.
All right, let's close today out with some Hey Joe questions brought to you by Oakwood Pizza Box. Anthony was in the house last week. He didn't replace me with Anthony?
He took the studio by storm.
Yeah, he didn't
the
replace
first day,
me?
we had some I had some technical problems the first day.
I heard.
The second day was a resounding success. I was very proud of myself. I don't think I've ever been more proud of myself to the point where I actually called you.
Yeah, you did call.
It required an actual phone call.
It required an actual phone call, and it was almost like I had to tell you, I'm not in front of a computer right now. I'm literally in Midtown Manhattan. I cannot help you right now. I'm walking here. Hey, I'm walking here. Speaking of Anthony from James, Hey Joe's Anthony from Oakwood Pizza Box related to Ray Romano. Great compliment to Giglio. Loved his Dean is overrated. Excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
I know. Trust me.
Dean is overrated?
Trust me.
Okay.
Now, it's not from me because you know I'm always defending Carolina.
I was going to say, jeez, man. Jeez.
He is not related to Ray Romano. It just sounds, he could be his voice twin, though.
He really could. It is uncanny. It is uncanny how he sounds like Ray
He needs
Romano.
to get that Frozen money, or what was the Ice Age money?
Yeah, that's
where he's the squirrel.
That's what he needs. From Jonathan, Hey Joe, with Tommy White's numbers this season as heroics against Wake Forest last week, is it possible for him to eventually surpass Russell Wilson as the greatest Pac Pro transfer? Buddy, the venom that I saw towards Tommy White when I logged back on the internet. Goodness, folks.
Yeah, not happy. The people aren't happy.
Whew.
But no, you can't surpass Russ
because
of the story. Like, we're not coming up with a 6-part Tommy White podcast feature.
I mean, at no point
at this point,
we might get to that point. We got to get Gottfried, man. We got to get the Gottman on. So, like, did Elliot,
you can't surpass.
Did Elliot Avent ever tell Tommy White, son, it's not going to work?
You're never going to make it.
Because that's what Elliot Avent sounds like. Son, ain't going to make it, buddy.
No, this is the part of the equation that people don't like. That Tommy White had an outstanding season at NC State a freshman year. And I keep telling people about the SEC and their resources. And I keep telling people there's a reason why I predicted 2 SEC teams to be in the championship game. Yeah. I keep telling people at some point we're going to have all 8 teams in Omaha be SEC teams because they're offering perfectly legal NIL money. They're using other schools as a farm system. Basically, LSU used NC State as a farm system. That's part of the rules now. You can transfer one time without penalty, and you are allowed to take NIL money. Here's the question, because the market always finds its level. Yeah. If you're LSU and you're going to pour all this money in your baseball program, at some point you're going to win the thing.
This is true.
Okay. So this is how SMU got their downfall. You start paying too many people, and then all of a sudden you stop paying them, and they're like, hey, why'd you stop paying me? Well, you stop performing. Yeah. Because the market has to find its level. We'll always find its level.
Speaking of getting paid, I want to know what Chris Pollard is getting paid at Duke.
Wow.
According to
I almost felt like we almost had to have an emergency call to your dad this morning over this.
So real quick context. I forgot the gentleman.
Kendall Rogers.
Kendall Rogers. Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember the college baseball insider's name. Kendall Rogers reported that apparently Miami made a run for Duke's Chris Pollard. I'm like, well, okay. But Pollard said, nah, I'm good. Which, now look, Duke's got money. Like, that's the thing about people with Miami that people don't understand. Miami, by and large, is broke.
Yes.
Okay. There's a reason why they joined the ACC in the first place. They're kind of broke.
There's a reason why Jimmy Johnson didn't stay there forever, and all the other coaches never stayed there forever.
Duke isn't. Duke isn't. And what do we talk about before I went on vacation? In that private schools and the way this is all working now with NIL and, scholarships being limited and everything else, there's an advantage to being at a private school to make this kind of thing work out. And
this is
like Chris Pollard's sticking around.
This is amazing.
Said no to Miami baseball.
That's what I'm saying.
No to Miami baseball.
If we had your dad or Mike Archer on and said, even 10 years ago, the baseball coach, first of all, Miami is interested in the Duke baseball coach. Huh?
Right.
Second of all, the Duke baseball coach is going to turn down Miami. And if you're not familiar with what Miami was in baseball, 4 national titles, 25 trips.
It's nuts.
To the College World Series.
Yeah, it's nuts.
They literally used to go to and they have as an ACC member as well. Obviously, they haven't won a championship as an ACC member, but they literally go every other year. Okay. And for someone at Duke, this would be the equivalent of Miami's basketball coach turning down Duke basketball.
Yeah.
That's what this is the equivalent of. I'm not going to impugn Chris Pollard for his integrity, but I do think he is a family guy. And I think there's a little Kirby Hocutt here. Remember when the AD was there and his wife was like, hey, buddy,
I don't want to be here.
We're going to take a job in Lubbock, Texas, because we don't need to be here anymore.
Miami.
And so I think Chris Pollard looked at the situation. I'm sure Duke came up with a commensurate number.
Sure.
And he said, I would rather live with my family in Durham, North Carolina at Duke, where there's very little pressure for him to perform, then go to Miami and potentially be fired in 3 years and also be exposed to all of the things in not Coral Gables, but South Beach and Miami and South Florida and the such.
Makes sense to me. From Brett on Twitter, #Hate Joe. Why all the hate for Tony DeAngelo? When he was in Raleigh, he was a great teammate, great to the fans, and pretty damn good on the ice. What am I missing? So,
and this was the initial reaction 3 years ago, I'd be like, okay, I get it. But now, after he was here and was, do we agree? Do we align politically with Tony DeAngelo? Obviously, we don't. But that doesn't mean when he was here, he was like some sort of problem or cancer. He wasn't.
No. And I guess that's the thing. And we talked about this with Luke DeCock from the News and Observer. It really comes down to this. Is he a liability defensively?
It's not the strength of his game.
It's not.
But if he's your 6th defenseman,
sure. And there is a sentiment. There's a sentiment that I agree with in that throughout his one season before the Philly deal, he was performing at a replacement level on the cheap for Dougie Hamilton. In the regular season.
Yeah. At an 1/8 of the cost.
I mean, it was a win.
Literally an 1/8 of the cost.
It was a win. Okay. But there is a sentiment, and one that I agree with, that how much of his defense was picked up by who he was paired with.
Sure.
And who are you going to pair him with this upcoming? Are you going to put him with Chatfield? How much of a strain does that put on Chatfield? So that is the thought going forward that I agree with, that defensively he is a liability and the Canes can get got this way.
And
wasn't Philly terrible this year?
They're awful.
Okay.
They're awful. They're awful. Look,
doesn't it matter?
I joked about
don't we say this all the time about culture and how I tell you all other culture is bullshit except for Rod's culture?
Look, I joked about this on
and
Twitter.
Belichick's, in fairness, after I slander Belichick, his culture is real.
I joked about this on Twitter. Tired. Rod Brindamore Hall of Fame. Well, look at these other people who are in. That's tired. It's tired. Wired is saying, hey, look at all these other teams that can't get squat out of Tony DeAngelo. Squat. He's gone, blah, 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 blah. And yet, he seems to be functional with the Canes. That gets to your culture point. 2, Josh, American sports invading England, good or bad? Yeah, I guess what the Cubs and the Cardinals are playing and we're playing overseas in London. It's fine. It's fine. Sammy, he used to write for the Fayetteville Observer. Why can't I?
Batten.
Sammy Batten. Thank you. I couldn't remember Sammy's last name for some reason. Sammy Batten, who's retired now from the Fayetteville Observer, big baseball guy. He went.
That's awesome.
That's been great. It's been cool to see him. I mean, is it good or bad? I'm kind of indifferent about the whole thing. Honestly, I'm truly indifferent about. It's all about globalization, making more money, finding ways to get extract as much money as possible. Speaking of business, this is from the OG scoreboard.
Oh man,
hey Joe.
Yeah, you did miss this.
This would never fly here, right? This is from WNCN in Charlotte. The tweet reads: Bojangles CEO Jose Armario told QSR magazine recently that he would like to, quote, get out of the chicken business. Charlotte-based chain is already experimenting with streamlined menus that eliminate some of its staples like all-day breakfast, things like that. And it's, it's Bojangles getting out of the chicken business.
They yada the best part.
What was the
one of the
best part?
staples they're eliminating is bone-in chicken.
So I read the story. I read the story.
You're Bojangles, but you're gonna have Bowberry shakes.
I read.
Come on, what is happening here?
I would do that actually.
Well,
so this is where headline writers make the money they make. Well, I don't know. You were in the newspaper business.
They don't make any money, Joe. Come on.
So I guess so they don't make any money. They basically do things for shits and giggles, right?
Right.
And
for their entertainment
purposes. I feel
purposes.
like the headline writer did a disservice to actually what the story was about. Like, it makes, if you read the story, it makes sense that the CEO is taking, we want to get out of this particular business. It's about experience. I'm gonna go ahead and run it through the fans later here. Boop, 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 beep, boop, boop, beep. I probably should call it something else now. He wants to be Chick-fil-A. That's what they want to do. Chick-fil-A gets you on experience. And that's where Bojangles
shakes.
Yeah, and like the customer service and by the way, the existing Bojangles, like the one on Western, if you're going to go to a steak game, they're still going to do bone-in chicken. They're going to do tailgate special still.
That's fine.
So I don't know. I felt like that was a headline writer doing a disservice to what the actual story was about in the grand scheme of things. All right, let's get to our friend Ken on Twitter. Hey Joe,
how was the Ken had a great response to that Bojangles one that I'm not ready to say.
Yeah, probably not. Hey Joe, was the Greenwich Joe's pizza better than the other? And did you have the Battle of Who Could Care Less going internally when you went to go see The Cure? So
I got this great idea.
So about that. So we did this road trip, went through Shenandoah Valley, visited Kelly's grandmother, visited some friends in Philadelphia, continued up to New York. It just so happened that our time with the trip coincided with The Cure doing 2 dates at Madison Square Garden. So that's a band that I've always wanted to see live. My older son Caleb is kind of going through his 15-year-old, goth emo phase. So he's super into shoegaze and whatnot. So he's like, yeah, I'll go see The Cure. I'm like, all right, cool. Which, by the way, Robert Smith, the lead singer of The Cure, he's out there looking like a witchy grandma, but the dude's voice is immaculate.
So careful with the witchy grandma. Wow, I got
sorry. His hair's all, whatever. He's got his look. He's like in his 60s now, I think. Or he's as old as, I think he's as old as my father-in-law. But regardless, his voice is immaculate. Like if you did not know what year it was, you thought you were watching The Cure in 1989, man. It was impressive. And got to do a little check the box for Caleb to finally go see something at Madison Square Garden.
Can I trigger you and ask if he played The More You Ignore Me?
No.
Okay.
No. He did. They did finally get to all the hits though at the end in the second encore. But in New York, yeah, I mean, the easiest thing to do when you're in New York, when you're trying to save a little bit of money, is to go to Joe's Pizza. And we went to the One World Trade Center Observatory. And there's a Joe's Pizza right there in the main drag. And ended up just getting the straight up mozzarella, buffalo mozzarella. But then we were doing some other stuff. Caleb wanted to go to the Tyler, the Creator fashion store. Don't ask.
Okay.
And there's happens to be, in terms of the subway loop to make it work, I'm like, all right, well, we went into the Village and we went to the original Joe's Pizza because Caleb and Jacob were like, yeah, but where's the one from Spider-Man? I'm like, Well, if you wanted the one from Spider-Man, we got to go to the Village. So we ended up going to the Village and going to that Joe's Pizza. Is there a difference? The only difference is that the one near One World Trade Center took a card, and the one in the Village still takes cash. Now they have an ATM.
It's 3%, man.
I know, man. They got the ATM right there.
Don't knock the hustle, man.
I totally get
Save
it.
that money.
I totally get it. Is there one better than the other? I mean, I actually found them the difference between the two fairly consistent, honestly. And then we went to this Italian bakery.
Neither is as good as Anthony's. Don't worry. Go check out the
Kelly,
Oakwood Pizza Box.
Kelly's only thing, because we actually had this conversation. Kelly and I actually had this conversation about Oakwood Pizza Box while we were eating Joe's Pizza. She goes, look, and I've told this thing, I'm not saying anything I haven't said to Anthony. And he knows. There's a little bit of difference in the sauce. The Joe's Pizza sauce is a little sweeter than what Anthony does, which is fine. I actually prefer it not to be as sweet as the Joe's Pizza. The only thing Joe's Pizza seems to have that Anthony doesn't is the garlic granules. It's a specific type of garlic topping that we can't seem to find here. That's the only thing, the only difference. Not garlic powder, not garlic salt. It's literally called garlic granules. And I'm not sure you can find that here. And I've talked to Anthony about it. He's like, yeah, that's like more of like a New York thing. I'm like, okay, that's fair. That's fair. All right. And we'll get out of here on this last Hey Joe question from Seth Jarvistan. Hey Joe, are New York City teams actually important and superior, or does sports talk radio TV make it seem that way? I.e., does America actually care if the Knicks are good? You know what I did on the road trip, Joe?
Oh, no. You did it again, didn't you?
I did.
You can't quit.
I can't quit, man. I listen to so much sports talk radio. I actually listened to the other Joe Giglio.
I saw that.
I actually listened to the other Joe Giglio. That was actually kind of fun. And what I love about Philly sports talk is like all their callers are just, it's one big brag. I'm Philly born and bred. I remember the Broad Street Bullies. I actually had cheesesteaks with Dick Vermeil. Like that's what every caller is. That's what like every caller is on Philly sports talk. And they're also a front run in town too.
No.
Shocker. Shocker. So the Phillies suck.
Yeah, they're not good.
So it's all Eagles, man. I heard one conversation, I think it was on the Fanatic, where it was, is Kelsey a Hall of Famer? Like, okay, here we go, right?
Summer, baby.
It's summer topics, baby. And I remember 4 years ago when we drove through, they were having a big, like, if you had to do it all over again, are you taking that big Nick energy or are you going Carson Wentz? You know, like that's what happens in summer sports talk radio. DC, and again, DC, they're obsessing over the Bradley Beal deal. And interestingly enough, no topics about the Qatari fund coming in. And I think it was the Qatari fund. But anyway, and then in New York, New York's New York, right? Everything in New York was about the fact that they've had a
Aaron
programming
Judge is
change.
Never playing again.
No, actually, it was the fact that
got stolen or whatever.
Yeah, Carton's leaving for Fox Sports 1 full time, and they're moving up Tiki. And like every time I tuned into the fan, into FAN, it was like, it was everyone's navel gazing. But whatever. To answer the question, and I guess I don't know. Is it story time? Should we peep game? Do we have enough time to peep game here? To kind of peel back the curtain about this business.
Yeah,
all
absolutely.
Right. So,
how much do you?
Oh, I mean, at this point,
I only got one more paycheck.
We're untethered, dude. It's all good. We're untethered. So here's what's going on, because like Keyshawn, J. Will, and Max reportedly is on the way out,
being phased out. I saw that
phased out. No clue what.
I think I would take our exit over being phased out.
And probably,
I think I would, man. It's the Band-Aid, right? Just rip it.
No.
Yeah.
Nah.
For real? You want to be phased out?
I would rather be phased out.
No.
I'd rather tell me what my last day is.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather get that.
That's the difference between you 14 years, me 3.
Yeah.
That's what that
No,
is.
there's just, absolutely.
That's
total difference on that one. So here's what's going on. Radio is having difficulties monetizing, right?
Sure.
And there's multiple reasons for that. And when you are part of a television network, that's where the money is. There's money, what's in the banana stand? It's in TV. It's television ratings. It's having the big rights fees to broadcast the games and all the ancillary programming that goes around with that. And over time, radio has become more and more of an afterthought. The last great national sports talk radio show, was what, Joe?
Mike and Mike?
Mike and Mike. And I can speak from experience with working at 99.9 The Fan. Mike and Mike was routinely the #1 rated show we had on the station. It got better ratings than Adam and I, which is actually a little bit inverse, because typically the afternoon local radio show is your top rated show. But Mike and Mike did such a great job speaking to casual sports fans in the morning and getting your day set and having good interviews and keeping it moving, right? That it brought in not just men 25 to 54, but adults 25 to 54. It did really, really well. But what ended up killing that show? Television. As Greenberg's stature at the company continued to grow, he was more interested in doing more of a TV product. That's how you ended up with Get Up.
Yeah.
And Golick was the opposite. He's like, no, I like it in Connecticut. I like radio. Let's keep doing it. And that's what ended up being a little bit of their friction. Now, Greenberg is one of the highly paid ESPN personalities. He works nonstop next to Stephen A. Smith doing Get Up, radio, the NBA coverage, all that stuff, right? So TV is where the money is. Everything else has had trouble monetizing. And this now gets to national radio. The reason why there's a focus on New York, LA, Chicago, interestingly enough, is because ESPN has owned and operated or partnerships with radio affiliates in those markets. And they're trying to do their best to get as much ratings as they can and then take it to national advertisers saying, hey, look where we are. We're in LA. We're in Chicago. We're in Miami, yada, 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 which then leaves mid-market sizes like us to kind of flounder because you're talking about the Knicks all the time, or we're obsessed with what's going on with the LA Lakers.
Or Aaron Rodgers.
Typically, in every major market where ESPN has a radio affiliate, they get destroyed by the local, okay? So if you look at ESPN radio ratings in New York, they're getting trounced by WFAN, all right? Boston's another example of this. Every ESPN program that gets put on gets trounced by whatever. Why do you think that is?
Well, they care more about their teams.
They care more about their teams. And that's something that you and I and Adam and I always focused on, especially in a market our size. By the time you got to our shows, that was the first time you were actually hearing local sports talk.
Sure.
Because on a Monday, yeah, everybody can talk about the NFL, but who was talking about State and Carolina football? Who was talking about ACC football? We were. And that's where we made our bread and butter. And that's what I think we're going to try to do here, because there's still a pull for local, which gets to another part. The other reason why local shows trying to talk national is always going to lose, and we can use us as an example. We dabbled in Buffalo Bills talk from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of
there's a lot of Buffalo fans here, though.
There are, and sometimes we dabble in what's going on nationally with like the Jets or whatever, or the Patriots. But technology is at a point now where if I'm a transplant,
I can listen to those shows.
I'm listening to those shows because I have this. Okay, I have this. And
you're not listening to those shows. You're listening to the podcast.
Aha! Which gets to my next point. But real quick on this, and your phone and the apps and podcasts and everything else, we benefit from that too. Because I'll use my friend Rick as an example. When he moved up to Boston for work, he's an NC State guy. Were they talking about NC State on WEEI?
No.
How was he listening to NC State stuff? He was listening to our stuff via podcast, via streaming. So all of these things kind of lead to a larger point about how national sports talk's gone away too, because if you are a national personality and you have a following, you're gone. You're doing podcast. You're Bill Simmons. You're Dan Le Batard. You're taking that gambling money.
Well, that's why they took McAfee.
Yeah, that's why they took Heck.
And McAfee's real success, just real quick, is he talks to people.
Yeah.
He actually talks to people. Mm-hmm. The ESPN crew post Mike and Mike, they stopped talking to people. And they only talked to Adam Schefter. Yep. They only talked to whoever the ESPN personality was.
It was an ESPN information vehicle.
And I appreciate some of their viewpoints, but at some point, I do want to hear from Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Maybe not every week, but I do want to hear from him. He talks to a lot of the different players. He talks to a lot of different coaches, commissioners. I mean, that's where he really can make your bones here. Wink, wink, nod, nod.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But by the way, I'll also be straight up that monetizing podcasts is very, very difficult as well. There's only a very small on the national level. On the national level.
National. Yeah,
forget national level. Okay.
Yeah, I can't convince Sprint to come advertise with
Like,
us, but I can get a lawyer, I can get a real estate, I can get a pizza place.
Sure. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's actually good. At some point along the lines, I think we forgot that it's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay to be local. It's okay to make a decent amount of money and make a living off of it. But everything has been chased by growth. And the easiest way to grow your bottom line, if other things are lagging, is to dump salary,
get the Qatari fund,
which is for that, which I feel like we're going to talk about. I feel like we're going to talk about that next. We'll talk about that later in the week. But ESPN's in a position they're in right now and they're shedding salary because they're trying to make their bottom line look better. Now I have another theory. I think they're actually trying to spin off ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're trying to. I think FanDuel, DraftKings, somebody will come in and buy it. But that's another theory.
Yeah, why do
for
I have to
another
go to
day.
a different app to place my bets than
Yes.
for the app that I have to check my scores?
Which is how we'll close this, because that's actually the next thing that is the great unknown. Because I read this in Awful Announcing recently it was another opinion piece on how like Gen Z doesn't care about sports.
Yes,
right?
I read that too.
Okay.
I thought of you.
Yeah, well, it's real. It's a real threat. And all the people who are doing pretty well right now, the Levitards, the Bill Simmons, Ryan Russillo sold out the Gramercy Theater next to the hotel that I was staying at for one of his live podcasts. They brought Chris Paul. Like Caleb, we walked past it. He's like, "Who's Ryan Russillo?" I was like, he's a podcast guy. He used to work for ESPN. He's like, "So people are just showing up to this theater to watch him do a podcast?" I went, "Yeah, buddy."
All of this could be yours.
Yes. Yes. But Caleb is a Gen Z kid.
Yeah.
And he doesn't care about these types
No.
of things. And Jake Paul,
That's the problem.
Jake Paul and them, they've all figured out that it's all about cringy TikTok humor, the baby Gronks. Like if I bring up baby Gronk, Caleb knows exactly what I'm talking about. He's like, "Yeah, but didn't you get supplanted by
Rizzed
baby
up."
Diggs?" So I'm like, right, Caleb. And they're consuming things on TikTok and other forms that are like a weird humor that I'll never understand.
Right.
You'll never understand. And they're foregoing all of this stuff. It used to be that millennials are killing the business because they're reading blogs and listening to podcasts. Well, guess what? The next generation coming up, the millennials are now old. They're not the young people anymore. They're in their 30s, for heaven's sake. They're established. They're mature. The people coming up, they're consuming it completely different. And it's not this. And it's really weird. And we don't know how we're going to make money. So we'll find out. You want to do micro betting?
The old-fashioned way. We're going to sell ads.
Yeah. It's like vinyl.
We know how we're going to make money.
It's like vinyl. It's like vinyl. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for today's edition of Ovies and Giglio. We will see you all on Wednesday.